Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Catalyst webinar series. My name is Blake Jurgis. I am the Education Committee Chair for the SCPGA and current board member. And today's Catalyst is proudly brought to you by our presenting partner, DRS, Digital Revenue Systems, helping facilities elevate their member experience through premium digital signage designed for golf, fitness, and wellness environments. To learn more, visit digitalrevsystems.com. This month, we were talking about teaching and coaching, and Monty Scheinblum gave us an excellent background and conversation about online teaching. That video is actually up on YouTube right now, and if you want to take a look back at the webinar, you're more than welcome to search that. But today, we have a very special guest, Ron Stockton, putting, short game, and mental game guru, here in the webinar today. Ron is one of the most respected putting and short game coaches in golf, carrying the legacy of his father, Dave Stockton, while building his own reputation working with players at the highest level of the game. His approach blends elite level technique with a deep understanding of the mental side of performance, especially when it comes to putting under pressure. Today, you're going to hear insights on how to help players perform when it matters most, simplify the putting process, and coach short game at a higher level. Ron, thank you so much for being here, and so excited for this conversation. And for everybody on this webinar as well, if you guys have any questions, please leave a question in the chat box. That would be a great place for us to engage with Ron. And this webinar is going to be more of a conversation and just get to hear about Ron's story, but also some really cool insights on his teaching and coaching with his players. So Ron, let's take it away. We're excited. We have a lot of attendees today, and we're excited to share your story. And I just want to kind of take a look back at your background a little bit and kind of where you grew up and how golf maybe shaped your early years. And obviously, you had just a legendary dad, maybe influence your teaching and coaching. So kind of want to take a look back at your background a little bit and kind of hear more about yourself.
Yeah, appreciate it, Blake, for having me on. No, it's definitely been a journey. My life has been blessed. Definitely watching my dad play this game at a level that most don't get to. I guess in a difficult way, it made him hard to argue with as a young kid. So generally, when my dad told me to do something, you really didn't have any ground to stand on if you were gonna not go along with it. But yeah, I'm born and raised in SoCal, and obviously spent my summers on tour traveling with my dad as he played on tour. It's kind of interesting that, my dad, his father, my dad always talks about it in terms of kind of a complaint, but his dad didn't really let him play summertime golf. His dad was a pro at Arrowhead Country Club and a really, really good player. My dad would argue that his father was every bit as good as he was, although he would say probably didn't putt quite as well as he did. But yeah, I guess way back when Walter Hagen came to an exhibition match at Arrowhead Country Club, and my grandfather took him out completely.
Nice.
So yeah, for some reason, Walter Hagen never came back and visited the club after that. But my dad's dad, Gail Stockton, he was his only teacher, and besides making him work during the summers and not play summertime golf, he was his only teacher. Took him through the game, and when he passed away in '83, I was just 13 years old, and at that point, and my dad basically had lost the person that took him all the way out, got him out on tour, and told him everything he needed to know. And so the next 2 years, basically what happened is, as I recall, my dad would back me up on this, is that he would take me with him on every lesson. And I'm, at first I'm not really that engaged. I'm just there as a third party. But my dad realized that he wanted me to take notes. So he basically said, he'd take me to these lessons. I'd be giving notes, taking the notes, and we'd hash out the notes over dinner that night. And first he's saying, you don't take very good notes, son. And I said, well, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be paying attention to. So in a sense, over the course of basically 2 years, must have gone to 8 or 9 different instructors over that time. And I learned quickly that you don't take 100% from everybody you go see. You learn different things from different people, from the different perspectives. And by the end, my note taking had gotten pretty darn good, and I started to realize how this works. But my power of observation had definitely increased. Um, but at the end of that couple of years, I was asking him, "So who are we going to see this off season?" And he says, "We don't need to see anybody else." And they're at 15 years old. I'm looking at it with a little smile on my face. I go, "Oh, I see what you did. I'm your coach now." I go, "Well, this will be interesting. If you listen to me, this will be an interesting dynamic." So from that time on, basically, I was my dad's coach from 15 on, from 85, and really actually dug into his game considerably, even his long game, to the point where if you watch my dad swing on the regular tour, my dad would, well, he always looks at my brother, who was born first, obviously, my older brother, David. He looks at his swing, and he just looks at my brother and goes, "It's a miracle you were ever born," because it looked like a helicopter. He was spinning out, falling over. And, he's like, "Thank God I could chip and putt." That's all I could tell you there. But by the time he was on the Champions Tour, we worked on his ground game and how he used the ground. And even before that was really much of a thing. But I realized if Dad was going to get something more repeatable, um, he had to be able to at least stand in the same frame without falling out of camera at the end of his swings. So by the time he got to the Champions Tour, his accuracy with his long game it's so considerable, and his swing on the Champions Tour looks nothing like it did on the regular tour. So I was always kind of proud of the work that he did on that. Um, and of course, then riding the wave of the power of his short game combined with now he was hitting greens, I knew he was going to have a fun time on the Champions Tour. So, and from that exposure of working with him, I started working with other Champions Tour players too. He was telling me, "You just can't have him beat me every week, Ron." So I was like, "Well, I can't promise that, Dad. You're just gonna have to work harder." So
So
but
were
that's
you
how my coaching kind of got started.
so Ron, so you were I know you were you a teacher first and then player? Kind of like obviously you were a player, you played golf a little bit, but
Yeah,
then
I'm left-handed. So my dad, when I was a kid, my dad goes, "Well, all right, you look like you're starting to take this game seriously and everything else." And he says, of course, I'm just hitting this knockdown set of clubs." And he said, "I'm going to get you real set." And I'm all excited, here we go.
yeah.
And it's his old set chopped down for me. And I'm like looking at him going, "How am I supposed to hit these?" He says, "You're going to learn to play right-handed." I was like, "Okay. All right." So I was a little upset. Admittedly, I remember I just defied it, and I was just going to swing all these balls left-handed. And he's like, "They're not going to get in the air until you hit them right-handed, Ronnie." So, swallowed my pride, started hitting the balls right-handed. And at the time, it was, I always asked him, it's like, "What was the deal?" He says, and at the time, it was true. They didn't make great left-handed clubs. So he was like,
Yeah.
I know my stuff is good. You can certainly figure this out." And my grandfather actually helped me too make that transition. He had me actually throwing. He had me standing in a golf stance, right-handed style, with the ball in my right hand, and he actually had me throwing balls to a point, to a target, like I'm skipping a rock. He says, "Until that starts to feel natural," he says, "that this is your homework. Dad will hit balls here. You're just gonna be slinging balls underhand like you're skipping a rock towards different targets." And so that's what I did for like a month. And then he said, then he handed me the clubs. He says, "Now start swinging." And I was like, "Oh, this is much easier now." So that's
Yeah.
how my grandfather basically helped me get through that hurdle.
And then and so you guys were obviously your dad was a phenomenal putter on tour and just his whole life and just made just a bunch of putts everywhere and you guys, it sounds like you and your brother kind of took that over a little bit in a way, like where you guys almost specialized in that short game world and putting and chipping and short game stuff. And obviously, I know you guys do some full swing as well. And how did you guys kind of, I guess, hone in on specializing in that area with putting and short game?
Well, it's directly associated with the how good my dad actually is. He still is. I mean, in '84, he still makes the hole look like a bucket.
Mm.
And I know he doesn't see as well, so I'm still trying to figure out the nuance of how that's even possible. But yeah, no, I think it came from the legacy of knowing that he was a superior putter under pressure. And, that's what kind of shows up in his career is when he had an opportunity to win. And admittedly, my dad won 25 times as a professional on the tours. And he really didn't have that many opportunities to win due to the style of his game. He was literally one of the shortest, especially on the regular tour. One of the shortest, probably, certainly not the most accurate person off the tee. But the
Yeah.
thing is when my dad was in a few shots or had a chance to win or was in a position to win the tournament, I think he would probably only count 2 instances where it didn't happen. That to me is probably one of the most impressive stats because he did not have a power game. But when my dad hit fairways and he found himself in position to win, most of the time that happened. So
Yeah.
from that, obviously, we were known for our knowledge and trusted with the short game. So that's kind of not to, I guess there were parts in my career where I felt a little bit pigeonholed because I basically had worked the full game. But growing up, I couldn't have a better example that demonstrated that putting does not have to be difficult. In fact, I grew up thinking it was the easiest thing you get to do on a golf course. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I say that and everybody, there might be a few people smiling, but I mean, it is. I mean, because it's the least physical thing we get to do. The lie is usually always really good. And I don't have to worry about getting the ball airborne. In fact, I don't want to do a whole lot of that to begin with. So,
Yeah. And it sounds like to me, it's like when you think about the beginner golfer, right? And they're saying, and compared to the professional, it's like the professional can hit it 250, 300, 350, right? And a beginner golfer hits it 100, 150 yards. But
right.
there's no correlation between like distance or speed when it comes into putting, right? Everybody can be relatively a pretty good putter
Everybody
from
has
a
the
physical standpoint.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody has the opportunity to be a great putter.
And I
Um,
think I want to transition into kind of that whole concept of like putting in general. And we'll kind of dive deeper into other things too. But when it comes into putting, helping your players perform, and especially when it actually matters, and from a beginner player to advanced player, I want to kind of go through maybe like your process a little bit about putting. Right? Let's go like maybe process about putting first, and then we kind of maybe segue into pressure putting. But I want to kind of just know about your process within that realm.
sure. I mean, literally the first thing I'll do with anybody is one, you need to make sure that they're reading the greens correctly. I've got a lot of people that ask, my position on aim point, and this. I think it's a fantastic tool. It doesn't go against anything that we prescribe that you need to do, because obviously for ultimate performance, certainly under pressure, you need to be 1,000% committed to what the plan is. Aim point is a huge commitment tool. It can be. So, as far as the first part of the process is, one, making sure their analysis, their observation tools are such that they're reading putts accurately and reading for speed. It's probably the catches a lot of people off guard is it is so easy with putting to switch into an outcome based thought process. So you're trying to put the ball in the hole, which becomes an outcome based thing. And it's not the key to actually performance under pressure is making sure you don't switch into that mode. And it can seem counterintuitive that to really become really good, you actually stop worrying about trying to make it. It becomes the sensation becomes an assumption, meaning you simply do your process, which we help instill, and the outcome is, man, the ball just seems to go in the hole.
Yeah.
And it's no different. And it really wasn't. I'm not chasing this from any different direction other than I want to be consistent through the bag. I mean, if I ask anybody, when do you know you've hit an absolutely perfect drive? How quickly does it take your brain to say, money, that was perfect? And
Yeah.
it manifests itself in you're barely even finishing the club and you're reaching down to pick up your tee. So you're responding to something, feedback that's happened at contact, the sound. Your brain is taking in information that has nothing to do with outcome. You already know the outcome, what the outcome's going to be. We're pulling that into putting and making sure that you're consistent with that process with the putter as well, so that the moment you make contact with that putter, you're like, that is exactly what I intended to do.
And whether it goes in or goes in or does not go in, it's
Well,
almost like you,
you've controlled your environment to the extent that you can. The
yeah.
putt, the surface is, unless a few weeks or so we'll be at Augusta. And I hard to say that that surface is imperfect, but everything else is kind of up to the gods. All you can do is actually have proper contact, teach them what proper contact is supposed to be, and once it's rolling, that it's rolling. I can't just like, no, you can't do anything about once you pipe that drive. If it takes a funny hop on the fairway and or hits a gopher mound or some weird imperfection and
Yeah.
bounces dead left, that's not on you. You made the swing you intended to make, you made the contact you intended to make, and that's all you can control. Interesting story that my dad one time, it was probably one of the last, I think he was probably 67, 66. He played at Newport Country Club, the Toshiba at the time. It was one of his last pro events, but he was hitting the ball well. Everything's, at that point, Freddie Couples was coming online, and it was kind of almost like a replay of kind of going through the early '90s with my dad realizing his regular tour career is coming to an end. But he's playing well, and Newport, I don't know if you're familiar with it. The first two holes are the easiest
Yep.
holes, nice warm up holes. 9-iron, if not less, into the greens. Well, great drive, great 9-iron. Hits it about 15 feet below the hole, which again at Newport Beach Country Club, you want to keep it below the hole there, especially on the Poe greens. And
Yep.
he basically three putt bogeys the first two holes. And I'm looking at him, I'm caddying for him, and I look at him, and I go, is everything okay? And he kind of smiles at me. He goes, I know exactly what's happening. It's going to be an amazing day. And I was like, okay, because I would mentally just been in the trash can thinking I've just blown the first two easiest holes on this golf course, three putt bogeys. And he goes, I'll explain to you after the tee shot. So he hits a good drive, and we're walking down the fairway. He goes, I know I three putted those first two holes, but I'm making such good contact with the ball, and now I realize my pace is off. The practice screen, they either didn't roll it or mow it, but he goes, I'll adjust my feel, but he says, it feels so good coming off the putter. So I was like, okay, I'm still trying to comprehend what the heck happened. It was, when I thought about it, I was going, yeah, every putt's about a foot and a half faster than going past the hole than what I'm typically seeing. So the next hole, third hole, still about a foot faster than he intended. He never missed another putt that day outside of inside 15 feet. He ends up shooting 64. And I'm like, well, you broke your age by like 4 there, Dad. That was fabulous. That nice work. I have no idea how you did it, but he did it because he knew he was on. He just needed to adjust his pace before the ball started going in. So if you're a grading outcome, first two holes, devastating to the ego. But if you know what you did was correct, and you just got to tie in the pace to what it is you're doing. I said, how did you do that? He says, well, normally I'm picturing, 16, 18 inches, getting a ball never short, but never more than that past. He says, in the end, he goes, I was imagining me putting to a tee on the front of the hole. So it kept him aggressive. It kept the game like, I've got to get this ball to kiss this tee. And usually that tee is far behind the hole on his through line. But today, for that, he kept moving that tee in his mind. And it finally got to the front of the hole, and then he says everything was going in. He says that, and then I knew I was going to have a great day. So that's the
That's
power
amazing.
of having a process that allows you to realize whether you're doing your job and only worrying about the things that you can actually control.
Yeah, and it's getting away from the outcome and more focus on like, hey, if I just go through my process, I hit a good putt, regardless of the outcome, I did my job, right? And
You
I think
don't, yeah. If it's outcome based, you will not have the stamina to withstand. You'll get distracted. You won't be able to tell whether that was on you or whether it wasn't.
so. Is that like kind of the difference between? when we putt like on the practice screen, and I start hooping putts. I just start making them, and then I go to the golf course and I'm playing in a tournament, maybe playing for money here and there with my players, and I miss a putt, and I feel like I push or pull it, and I kind of go into even my stroke maybe, or maybe why I missed the putt. Do you find your players? And maybe the newer players that come to you kind of go, "Hey, I do great on the practice screen. I get to my tournaments under that environment, and I start thinking about maybe like my outcome, not just an outcome, but like, hey, I push it, I misread it, all these things, and it's almost like they are get discouraged almost, and they almost have this that one round dictates on their future in a way. Like it almost like says I'm a bad putter because I did miss putts. Versus, and I go to the practice, I start making putts. I feel confident with those ones. Like, how does that kind of relate to like how you deal with those kind of players and with your coaching?
Well, right off the bat, the only way to fail is if you fail to learn. So if if you find you have a failure, the mind controls the muscle. So a lot of times if you could go right to the source. Well, I pulled that. I had some mechanical breakdown. Yes, that's like low hanging fruit, but that's not the path to future success. You probably had a mental glitch where maybe you changed the read or something didn't feel right, and you push through it thinking, well, I'm just going to go. Um, the reality is this needs to be, you can break things down while you work on them and work on individual components. Maybe you're going to spend 10 minutes working on just your stroke, um, or you're going to stand at the chalk line and you're going to see if for the next 10 minutes and see how many in a row you can make. um, but you have to be careful how you practice, because if you're simply practicing, trying to prove to yourself you can do something in practice, the only thing you may end up strengthening is your expectation. And again, that's going to be outcome based. It's not the
Yeah.
most efficient way to do it. It's almost like practicing when we all learned to cursive in school. Not sure they even teach that anymore, but we had the dotted line. So you're taking your pen and you're following your A's and your B's, and you're figuring out what it feels like. And your main job is just perfection. Just keep it, and everybody's writing looks the same. Well, at some point you need to practice having no dotted lines, and then later on I probably should practice more, but you'd be able to write a letter with no lines on the paper without it heading off in some weird tangent. But the reality is in the end, when you write something, it's similar to like how you would sign your name. Now there's a lot happening, but you're not thinking about every letter when you're in flow state. When you're actually anytime you're going to write something down, the first thing you do is think about what it is you want to say. Well, that's
Yeah.
not much different than in putting. Is you're committing to what this putt is telling you it does. So it's like, what is the story here? Pace, pace coming first. This becomes, committing to the pace. I'm going to roll it for this putt to get it. Never leave it short. Never more than 16 inches by. And maybe if it's Bermuda, maybe it's 24 inches. It just depends on what you're seeing, what happening at the end of the rollout, the stability of that rollout. But when your pace first, then the line comes from the pace you're committed to. Um, once you commit to that, once you start walking in, you're in the act of putting. It's unbelievable, even at the tour level, how many guys forget because they've been working on things that they they forget that from the moment they started walking in, they were actually in the act of putting. That's when you started signing your name. It's not battening down the hatches, going through your checklist. A pre-shot routine is not a checklist. Not when you're playing. I mean, maybe when you're practicing, you can make sure you're hitting all your marks, but that is not the type of routine you're going to use when you actually go play.
Got it. And is that so when you're talking about like even like the practice in the practice environments, and you're almost trying to replicate that feel of that pressure, right? And so you're talking about process, you're talking about the idea of like, hey, just being in the flow state and just hitting your putt and obviously visualizing it and all those things. Is there certain things that you do with your players from a practice state of like, hey, I do these certain drills, or like obviously we're talking about the chalk line, and obviously it's great for line control. And we talked about like the the effort of improving the stroke, which is like we're talking about the low hanging fruit. But if you're trying to replicate what that looks like from a practice state to a on-course state, how do you do that? Or is there certain things that you
Yeah.
do that are better than others?
Yeah. So I do use the chalk line quite religiously. And simply from the sake of from 4 to 6 feet, because what I'm trying to get them to do is actually get them to trust that there's a lot that can go on in the background that you can trust your brain to actually do for you athletically. Because as soon as you're trying to do something, you're very left brain, and unfortunately, a lot of the practice we do probably strengthens left brain muscle more than right. And then when you go
Yeah.
play, now you're trying. Now you're in battle. You really don't have that much time to think. You really don't want to be thinking a lot. You want to
Yeah.
be athletic. You want to be reacting to what you see and feel. Unfortunately, when you're practicing maybe something new, that's a very left brain endeavor. So I will generally start practice sessions again once you get past the reading the greens, and I'm kind of isolating maybe some mechanical issues. We're going to spend 10-minute segments on those things, and I probably in any given session I won't go more than maybe two things. There may be five things wrong with this person, but I'm only going to hit two, and we're only going to work in 10-minute increments because especially when you're doing something very repetitive and we're trying to get some sense of consistency. Again, mind controlling the muscle, the mind really only has about 10 minutes of concentration, pure concentration, and it can't really tell the difference of repetitive motion or repetitive thought process. I mean, neurons don't touch each other. You've got proteins that get sent between neurons. You only have 10 minutes. If you keep firing the same neurons, if anybody's ever had the experience of the swing thought that clicked on the range and you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to miss another shot.
Yeah.
And then about 35 minutes later, you start to lose it. And it's like, oh, I had it. And then I lost it. I don't know what it was. You were there too long. Because if you keep trying, I keep saying that word, trying. If you're trying to do something, you should probably only be doing that for about 10 minutes before you change the game, change the setup, change the mission, whatever it might. You can come back to it in 10 or
Mm.
15 minutes, but to sit there and think you've actually accomplished amazing things past that 15-minute mark, you probably haven't. You've built up the expectation that I've just spent an hour working on this. I should be amazing when I go out and play, and it's just not going to happen. You have to build trust in these increments. So I'll use the chalk line, and I'll actually use the chalk line as a proof of concept that this is a straight putt, and then I'll actually have them with the feel that I've implemented, without them looking down and being able to see anything. I'll have them just get set up, look out at the hole, at the front of the hole there, and roll putts while they're looking. And at first, it's like sighting the rifle in. If the things are off and they're so used to being left brain while they putt, it feels so awkward it's not even funny.
Yeah.
And it may not be correct, but then within two putts, every putt's going in the hole. And I go, doesn't feel as weird anymore. And they're like, no. And I said, it's like throwing a dart. You're not staring at the dart. You're not sitting there thinking
Yeah.
about, your brain is capable of doing these athletic adaptations for you. You see it every time you watch in basketball. Someone's being fouled like crazy on their way up to the basket. Those pros know exactly where that rim is, spatial awareness. So you don't have to feel like you have to be perfect to have them do this drill. They start to realize, man, it just goes everywhere I look. Now I've taught them how to actually look at the hole, because most people glance at the hole and come back to the ball like they think like this is the thing.
I mean, this is awesome stuff. And I think if you, everything you're saying right now is, it works for kind of all players, it sounds like to me. Like it ranges from the beginner player to the person that just barely
Yep.
putts to maybe the advanced player, right?
Yep.
Like the player that maybe your tour players that you coach a little bit, right? So everyone on this call, like this is like things are certain steps. It's not like this is for this is for every golfer, honestly. Every person that you coach, or every
It's the
student, or even
foundation.
yourself.
It's the
Yeah.
foundation. I mean,
Uh,
I will start exactly that way, whether you're a 25 handicapper or a tour player. Is that I'm going to assess what your process is and how you get there.
And when you're kind of, I mean, working with better players, like whether it's maybe your junior players or like maybe your elite junior players, maybe like the highly ranked ones or college players or even tour players and stuff. Um, and I'd be curious on like what are you fixing most often? Is it more technique? Is it more of like perception? Is it feel? Is it green ring mental? Is it mental aspects of things? Like what do you notice your better players are more struggling with? Um,
Well, yeah, I think it's pretty common that the consistency of the mechanics of an average person starting out, there's far more ground to be made by maybe working on the mechanics. Um, then obviously you get to the tour level, they've got repeatable action is not the issue. A lot of times it can be the pressure of being on tour, the pressure of outcome has leaked into their process, and it's kind of working that thought process back into something where they actually start to see the results they want, and they start to realize it's a very it can be feel like a very indirect relationship rather than trying to make the ball do what you want to do versus just all you can do is be assured that you're doing what you need to do and the ball basically does what it needs to do, but it's not
yeah.
getting away from that direct relationship. Is the biggest difference is, and that's something that obviously I've been working on, a short game ball that's it's been a lot of fun over the last 3 years trying to get this little marble put properly inside the center of a golf ball, but it's allowing me to connect feel to performance, because obviously if pace is the number one thing you're trying to get right, because most putts do break. I mean, if we put it on a pool table, then you could just say line is always most important,
Yeah.
but because if there's going to be an arc to the putt, it has to be rolled with the intent that you had wanted to do. So pace control, your ability to control that pace is directly tied to the type of contact you make with a golf ball. And
Yeah. So would you say pace it? Obviously, I knew, sorry. You said green ring you always do first, right? And I
right,
think that my guess is you're saying like that is probably your primary of the three skills, whether it's green reading, line control, speed control. Are you saying green reading be number one, speed control number two, line control number three? Is that
correct.
accurate?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's like building the rifle. You want the rifle firing perfectly every single time, as best as humanly possible. So at first, maybe the mechanics of the amateur need some work. We're working on that. Maybe their weight is shifting. That was when you get to the pro level. A lot of times, it's not necessarily the stroke. It's actually can be actually what their balance and their weight is doing, because it's
Mm,
a lot of people, unless you're putted on pressure plates, a lot of people aren't really even sure what their weight is doing, and it can have a dramatic effect on what your stroke's doing consistently. So, but by the time you get to the pro level, the rifle's basically firing pretty darn good. Then we just, because of that, now we can align the scope and actually have it be meaningful. It's like, but you kind of go in that order.
of that. And we were talking earlier, you said like the little marble thing, but the Genius Ball has kind of been a project of yours. And I'm not sure if anyone knows what the Genius Ball is, but it sounds like to me it's like a golf ball within a trackman within a golf ball, essentially. And I kind of want to dive deeper into that of what that Genius Ball even looks like exactly, and almost like how it may shape the world of coaching, or maybe how you even talk about putting, essentially. But I want to kind of learn more about the Genius Ball. And I think everyone would like to know more about like, hey, there's a GPS and a Bluetooth um, and a golf ball that is going to kind of give players data, honestly, and anybody can kind of use it. It sounds like so. Yeah, let's go. Let's dive deeper in the Genius Ball.
Yeah. So realizing that there was probably a good 20 years ago, TaylorMade at the time was doing research on the best putters on tour. They were actively getting guys to mess with different face technology, and I remember them going out on the practice greens and actually taping these prototype faces to the putters that all the pros were, whatever their putter was. Just let us glue this thing to the face of your putter and let's test some numbers. And what came out was that statistically the best putters were getting the ball rolling consistently faster. The ball spent far less time in skid phase,
Mm.
and it was funny. It's just funny because by the time they got to my dad, they had Lauren Roberts at the time was the king of getting the ball rolling, and then they had my dad try it, and they thought the machine was broken because he literally cut the distance in half on the same type of putt that Lauren Roberts was getting, and his numbers were spectacular. But there's a nuance to my stroke, and I don't want to get into the weeds on making mechanics probably the most important thing. But the biggest difference is my dad and how we teach putting is it's unrelated to all the other clubs in your bag. The stroke you make with or the swing you make with any other club, it's meant to impart backspin on the ball for that stability. Well, in putting, you can't scale down the swing motion of a club and have it translate properly to a putter. It's just, they're two different games. I mean,
Yeah.
Hogan hated putting. He wished it wasn't part of golf, but it literally, and this is the reason why. I mean, it's such a great ball striker, but those things were not going to apply to a move that you want backspin, but to putting, you want instant overspin if you can get it. And so 20 years ago, they figured this out, and I'm having this epiphany going, that's interesting. I never really thought about the nuance of my dad's contact. Now, early on, I mean, I probably would have been a better player had I not worked so hard on mechanics, because it did. I kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit. And before coming back to Jesus and realizing it's really where your mind is, and that it's the rhythm of your process that carries you through those important moments. But having this ball is really the culmination of realizing how important it is to teach people what good contact actually is, what part of the ball you're actually trying to make contact with. I just had a lesson with a young tour player. He's just getting started, and I asked him, I said, what part of the ball do you think you're making contact with? And he goes, the back. I go, well, what part of the putter do you think you're making contact with? He hadn't thought about it. He's like, it was all outcome based thinking. He was thinking, well, I go, well, when do you know you've rolled a good putt? And he says, well, when I make it. I said, well, that's not, we got a lot of work to do, but and I explained to him, I said, how would you know with any other club? And then he realized, okay, yeah, I should know sooner. But what's nice about this Genius ball is instantly tells you, it gives you flight monitor numbers. And, the standard for all of us that are coaches, we say TrackMan. This is so much more accurate than TrackMan, because up to this point, every other device, and it's going to sound like a sales pitch, but just think about this from logistically. Every other device has to be an external device trying to observe what it sees the ball doing and interpret that through an algorithm. And this is the ball actually coming straight from the ball. We put all the accelerometers, magnetometers, the Bluetooth, everything's in there, and it's the ball is actually telling you what you did to it. There's nothing to interpret other than the data coming directly from the ball. And right now, I mean, it gives you backspin or topspin, skid. It knows skid bounce. It'll tell you put it in two directions, 180 degrees. It'll give you the stimp reading of the green. It knows how far it was rolled. Initial velocity, launch angle, launch velocity, side spin, skid distance, skid duration, skid percentage. Now, spin axis. It tells you all these things. There's really only a few things I really care about, and that's going to be launch, because launch is turned out. A lot of people is like, well, wait, how about spin axis? Don't you want to know you're making this perfect contact with the ball? I mean, if you're chasing perfection, maybe, but when it comes to real world performance, I watched, and good, this is probably 15 years ago. I watched them roll this robot out onto the green, and it sideswiped these putts. I mean, the worst possible contact you could possibly make. And I was like, and he asked me, he goes, "How far do you think we're going to start at a foot, and we're going to keep pulling this thing back from the hole? When do you think with the stroke this thing's making, when do you think it's going to miss the hole?" And I said 3 feet. There's no way it went out to 10 feet before it started lipping out. And I'm sitting here trying to remap in my mind, just going, hold on, wait a minute. So what exactly do we care about? Well, as it turns out, launch is actually critical. It was really interesting to see all the low launch players at Pebble this year all going to bend their putters an extra degree so they could get the ball rolling better on the Poe. And
They're trying to launch it. They're trying to launch it lower, basically on the Poe
no, they're
greens.
trying to get it actually
Oh,
launching a little bit higher.
got it. Okay.
And these are guys that are typically maybe only launch it maybe a degree, maybe half a degree. You get to Pebble, and suddenly that might work early morning, but by the afternoon you're not making anything because you're not getting it on top of all the imperfections as it's coming to pass. So it is really interesting how important launch is. The side spin, while interesting, and I like to keep that to a minimum, obviously, but from your high expectation zone, 10 feet and in, it literally has nothing to do. As long as whatever you do, as long as you're consistent, you basically can play for that. My dad basically draws his putts. So he'll have a pretty strong side spin number that shows the ball trying to fight to go left. But that's because the nuance of his stroke puts a draw on it, and there's that draw spin. But he also comes from the inside corner. So those two things cancel out, and the rest is history. So if
Yeah.
you're chasing perfection, and again, you look at his putter sitting there, and at static, his putter's looking like it's aimed left, but his stroke kind of goes slightly outside, slightly drops back inside, and he catches on the inside, and he does it consistently every time. So it's an interesting metric, but side spin is not. It can be easily distractible, but that's not one that I get excited about. Proper launch will get a ball rolling consistently faster and better than any other metric that you can possibly get. Past the nuance of the type of stroke you're making, which should feel more like you're painting a line to the hole versus releasing a hammer into a nail. So,
Got it.
so between the top spin and the launch angle, those would be my primary.
So this, I mean, it sounds like this genius ball, and I'm gonna get some for myself when I can, honestly. But like, it's basically like you're talking about like the putter, like putter fittings aspect of it, right? And you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, hey,
Yep.
certain green types, and I know that a lot of tour players actually play a little loft, right? They're not like the standard at 4 degrees, like a Scotty Cameron, or some of these degrees, right? They play a little bit less than that, correct?
Right.
Because they're trying to get that ball on the ground a little bit sooner. They're launching a little bit lower, and so Poa actually the ball's sitting down mostly, kind of in its indention, and then it's kind of like lifting up.
Right.
Um, my curiosity goes into, and I think the fitting aspect is really cool. And I got a question actually here from one of our attendees here, but talking about like matching strokes with different types of putters and fitting wise, like for instance, like zero balance putters or low torque putters, like Lab or Scotty, or basically all the putter manufacturers now are coming out with those. Um, have you seen that kind of help people putt better? Have you seen it? Is this a fad? Is this something that's going to stick around for a long time? Like, what's your opinion on this stuff? I mean, I know that your dad obviously played that blade putter for a long time, right? And still does
Well,
it.
yeah. I mean, he played with the M1 Ray Cook M1. He won his early majors with that. Played with an Ping Answer 4. Won majors with that as well. Um, Generally putted better with a toe hang putter for him. Gave him the athletic feedback to square the face. Because again, his stroke is not easily teachable, but the nuance of what he was feeling when he was doing it, that is completely that one you can get anybody to do. Yeah, I just the last lesson yesterday, I had a guy come out with 3 putters, and before we did really anything, I said, okay, well, right off the bat, we're going to figure out which two we're going to eliminate one. And so I just had him roll the balls as his stroke is as of right now. He says after rolling the balls, I said, well, you can put that one back in your bag because that one you can't get it, you're not launching that one online, and this one you're actually rolling the ball much better. So let's go with the putters that actually get the ball rolling faster first, and then I'll dial in the direction afterwards. But I'm going to have you, I'm going to gravitate towards the putter that actually gets the ball rolling faster for you, and then we can worry about how accurate you started online.
So is that
um,
like what are your thoughts on that? The zero torque putters then, like, is that, do you see them rolling the putts better? Is it?
it it it's subjective, to be honest. That's what I'm finding. I think, and that's kind of what I'm excited about this golf ball. It's going to cause all the equipment to get better because you can't hide behind marketing. It's either going to work, um, but this at the same time, the reality is finding something that looks good to your eye, that your brain can square up, feels good in your hands, and you know, for the most part, maybe you find maybe that those elements combine into an element that maybe it wasn't the one that you rolled the highest topspin numbers, but it's the one you actually over the course of 20 putts, that was the most consistent one. Well, clearly that's the putter you're going to have to go with. So yeah, I mean, I do see some players putt much better with low or no torque. Uh, some that's not even the issue. So it's again, it's always going to be subjective. I don't think there's it, but one thing that is going to be true is um, claims are going to have to be accurate because the ball doesn't lie.
Yeah.
It'll tell you whether you're starting this more online, you're getting this ball turned over faster, or your side spin is less with this putter. It will show it. There's no
So
hiding.
it sounds like to me it's like, not to say this is the case, but like obviously with Lab coming out, and you had Adam Scott kind of be a huge proponent in that, and obviously putting pretty well, honestly, and a confidence thing. And then you see these our average members at our clubs or our students coming up lab putters just because of we see them, the tour players playing those type of putters, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not like they're getting fitted for those putters. And I think Ron and you both guys can agree. It's like, hey, getting putter fitting is probably pretty important to understanding what is they're gonna be the right fit for you. It's not like just like hey, I'm gonna order this Scotty or this Lab or TaylorMade Spider, whatever it is. But it's like, hey, which one looks good to you? Which one rolls the putter the best? Gives you maybe the best numbers per se. But would you agree like that fitting is going to be probably pretty important for a player to do, regardless of
Absolutely.
the level?
Yeah, there's no if you're I mean if you were trying to remove the barriers to performance, you absolutely need to get properly fitted. There's just no way around it. And the ball's an excellent way to figure out what each person actually needs to be fitted with.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I had fun using it in another lesson. It turns out there was no argument. The guy actually putted best with an arm lock setup, and his
Mm.
consistency numbers just went through the roof. And to his eye, he hated it. But when he went out and played, he goes, "I'm making more putts." So he quickly got over the whole feeling of letting his pride get in the way of innovation. But it's like again, with the ball not really lying, it allows you a pathway to, if you're willing to accept that data. And again, that's what's beautiful about this. We're getting real data on real turf, not in the lab, not on AstroTurf. We're getting to see the nuances of, I got to show them the difference between roll numbers, why you need to add or not forward press quite as much when you're putting off of the fringe or the fairway. They got to see the difference in how much less skid you can put on a putt by finding out the feel of what optimal de-lofting would be in a particular situation. And
Yeah.
there's never been an avenue for that. The only way I could ever do it before was just, again, power of observation. I was hearing whether the ball was skidding. I was watching it, or I'd get my phone down on eye level with the ball so I could see how much, whether the ball was just rolling out with skidding out of frame or whether it was upon contact actually getting some forward roll.
Mm.
But it was awkward and clunky. This allowing me instantly, the moment I said, can you make make me this kind of feel, and all of a sudden they attach the feel to, okay, now we're doing that. Now the ball's tracking.
Yeah,
So
that's really
it's
cool.
such a useful tool. Um,
Yeah,
it's going to save time as far as figuring out what equipment, what grip they should use. I mean, I had one person go to a claw again, would never have gone to a claw if they didn't have the data to back it up. It's like you're just going to make more putts. So
yeah,
it's much more stable.
yeah. I think it's. I mean, it's also it's as a teacher and coach. Like obviously we know the importance. It's kind of hard to kind of find the right person to actually fit putters too. It's not like really much of a hey, go to a fitting day for putting. It's like we always have these fitting days and demo days for hitting golf balls or drivers or wedges or irons, right? Putters kind of get like um they're like they're on their own little world and they don't get taken care of, and
No,
um it's
well, yeah, I mean, it's the least physical, least dynamic thing, and probably I would say it's probably due to the fact that it's been difficult to actually track what it is we're supposed to be focused on. And
yeah.
that's the reason why putting so quickly becomes an outcome based event. Is like you're working on your putting because you're trying to make the putt, and suddenly if that becomes your focus, putting can become very difficult, especially under pressure. The realization is that if we are teaching someone proper contact, what it's supposed to feel and sound like to have a ball come off the putter correctly, then indirectly they start to realize they put that feel into practice, and just all of a sudden they're making more putts. But the second you start trying to make the putt, the hole shrinks. I mean, and again, that's why I have job security, because everybody messes that one up.
Yeah, that's great. I have one more quick question and we'll kind of answer this one pretty quickly and you know time is of the essence, but it says I got question here. Your feelings on left hand low chipping. So Matthew Fitzpatrick
Mm-hmm.
to left hand low putting, and where you think that method might lead. As far as it sounds like to me, like, hey, is it better to do like left hand low chipping and putting at the same time? Maybe maybe that's the question per se. But what are your thoughts on like left hand low chipping and
Yeah, well,
compared to
I'm
like left hand low putting?
for pitch and run shots. It's actually phenomenal. And again, I might be biased because I'm left-handed. So for me, it's a very natural kind of feel. But I will have my students practice quite religiously with just learning how to control the club with just the left hand for a right-handed player. So for pitch and runs, I'll just put the club just in your left hand and just start making shots. And you can have them choke down a little bit for just a little bit of that control, so you're not losing confidence and making it too difficult. But as soon as that starts to feel natural, their pitch and runs and their pace control becomes way cleaner.
Mm.
As far as that nuance, and that's what kind of I think led to that left hand low chipping, is someone was like, well, why wouldn't I just keep that engaged? It's this is You'll get to the point where many times I'm doing that in a lesson, working with somebody and having them practice pitch and runs with just the left hand. At first, it's super awkward, feels horrible, results are all over the place. But as soon as it cleans up and they realize that the left hand being the dominant hand in that way of chipping, um, you'll actually feel they'll start to have, man, maybe I should just chip one handed. So, but that's where that led from. So as
Yeah,
far as, again, always getting back into, don't let pride get in the way of your innovation and getting ultimate performance. If you find working with something a certain way, or you discover something, it's like, I don't care what it looks like. Your signature is your signature,
mm,
not mine. I'm going to write and do things my way. And what we're looking for is what's giving me the performance, the ultimate performance I'm looking for. It's, no pictures on that scorecard, right? So it's what you find in practice that you can repeat. And if you're repeating it, then by all means go for it.
yeah. This is I mean I love that stuff, and I think I'm gonna start trying actually left hand low chipping. You just confirmed it, so I'm gonna try that out maybe later today on the golf course.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of we'll kind of end we're gonna kind of wrap up here. But quick question about the Genius Ball. Give us kind of like the people that are on this call. Like, what's the status of it? Like, when does it come out to? Obviously, I know it's in beta testing right now. Um,
Yeah, I've
give us
got
like when
three.
that.
I've got three prototypes. It's going to come in a 3 pack, and the cost for entry is basically $300, and then an annual subscription. Right now, looking like 120. The
When's
balls
that start
will.
up?
What's that?
You can get them right now, or are they coming
Yeah.
out?
Well,
Awesome.
they'll be coming out. Hard launches mid June. That's what we're
Good,
shooting
June.
for.
Cool.
The batteries in these last for about 10,000 putts. As a subscriber, with obviously you gain. I mean, this is the prototype of the app, basically just giving you, all the metrics that you're capable of getting. But as a subscriber, once the ball dies, we just send you out free balls. So
Awesome.
for the initial start out of $300, you'll get an active subscription, 3 balls, and you go to town. As soon as you turn the app on, put it on the flight monitor mode, and you can get that hard data. It also has a simplified roll score, basically giving you the health of your contacts. So if you were just wanted to, like a typical tour player, maybe in a score from 1 to 100, tour players are going to be in the 90s or higher. You could roll a few putts and see your score is where it typically is, because it's going to take an average of 3 metrics that I find to be the most important. And so it kind of monitors your health. And it might change. You might discover that due to the nuances of the greens that you're about to go play, maybe you need to not forward press as much. Maybe we need a little more launch that day. But you're going to go start that. You're going to start your round realizing the feel you want to get optimal roll, so the ball's tracking faster. So hard launch in June, and yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
This is awesome. I'm gonna join that wait list at the
The
on
genius.
that geniusball.golf. Um, that's kind of the website. So if anybody wants to learn more information about that, uh, join yourself on the wait list. And when it comes out mid-June, I'm definitely getting some for my players as well. But Ron,
Yeah, and
I want to just
there's going to be a neat coaching portal that we're going to implement to it to allow you to see their numbers on your platform. So you'll be able to see, hey, we might want to talk about your side spin here, or hey, we need to talk about your launch. What's going on here. So you'll be able to see their numbers.
love it. Well, Ron, this has been incredible, and I just think what stands out the most is how much like one putting matters, and but really the coaching aspect of in the mental side, the process, what you do with your players. It's understanding like the player a little bit more, not just the stroke. So kind of going into green reading and work on their speed and obviously the mechanics in it here and there for sure. But you kind of just talked about your dad a little bit, and then you kind of talked about how man, he just went up there and just tried to make putts, honestly, and he didn't have any outcome based. It was more about if I just make my best stroke possible and I do the things I know I can do, putts will go in. And if they don't, if I just put a good roll on it, then I know that I'm on the right track and just making sure I'm hitting the right putt. So, one, I just appreciate your thoughts and your insights, your experience, just a framework for your coaching performance that you have and sharing your knowledge with all of us on this call. So I want to say thank you and behalf of the SCPGA and the education committee, we're just happy to have you on the call and thank you everyone for joining us today on this Catalyst series. Next month we'll be talking about a little bit more about AI and whether it's with coaching or business or golf operations. We're super excited about that on this next month in April. Can't believe it's already April coming up soon. But Ron, again, thank you so much for a day, and we'll be checking this Genius Ball golf file out in the near bit. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we'll see everyone soon. See you in a few weeks.
See you guys.
Bye,
Enjoy it.
everybody. Thank you.